When she saw her students using their phones during class, she had an idea. This teacher changed the life of a young girl forever. When Miss Johnson first stepped into her classroom, she was shocked. There were 30 pairs of eyes staring at her, waiting for her to start the lesson. But then she noticed something strange. All the students had their phones in their hands. She tried to ignore it, but as the day went on, they kept ringing and flashing. It was driving her crazy. Then she had an idea. Maybe she could use this against them. So she told her students they'd be getting a pop quiz the next day. They all groaned, but she just smiled mysteriously. The next day, Miss Johnson entered the classroom with a stack of papers. Her students, still half asleep, started pulling out their phones to cheat. But when they saw what was on the papers, they panicked. The test was on their phones. They couldn't believe that she had somehow known they would try to cheat and had prepared for it. But Miss Johnson just sat back and watched as they struggled. They were so focused on the test, they didn't notice the clock ticking away. Soon the bell rang, signaling the end of class, but no one seemed to care. To Miss Johnson, though, it was just the beginning. Welcome to our channel where we bring you stories of all kinds. Some will inspire you, some will make you think, and some will entertain you. Today, we have a story about a teacher who was fed up with her students using their phones in class and decided to take matters into her own hands. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our stories. And don't forget to like the story if you enjoy it. Let's jump right in. From the moment Miss Johnson had walked into her classroom, she had felt a sense of dread. It wasn't the students that bothered her. She loved teaching. Rather, it was the parents. Whenever she had a problem with one of the students, they would come to her, not to listen to her concerns, but to argue. They thought their kids could do no wrong. At first, Miss Johnson had tried reasoning with them, but after a while, she grew tired of it. Now, when she saw a problem, she dealt with it herself. As the year progressed, Miss Johnson noticed that her students were spending more and more time on their phones. At first, it was just a few minutes here and there, but soon it became a full-blown addiction. She tried everything to stop them from using their phones in class, but nothing worked. She talked to them, she wrote them up, she even took away their phones. But every time she did, the students would just pull out another phone and go right back to using it. It was as if they couldn't live without their phones. Then one day, Miss Johnson had enough. She was fed up with the disrespect and the distraction. She knew she had to do something drastic to put an end to it. As the school year drew on, the phone issue got worse. Despite her best efforts, Miss Johnson couldn't get through to her students. She needed a different approach. One day, she came up with a plan. She would use the students' phones against them. The following Monday, Miss Johnson entered her classroom with a stack of papers in her hand. Her students were already there, of course, playing games on their phones. She ignored them and started handing out the tests. The students looked up from their phones long enough to see what was on the papers. They all looked identical. Each one had a single question on it. What is 2 plus 2? The students looked back down at their phones and started furiously typing. They must have thought Miss Johnson had lost her mind. Time passed and the bell rang, signaling the end of the test. Miss Johnson collected the papers and announced that she would go over the answers the next day. The students left the classroom, still typing on their phones. Miss Johnson couldn't help but smile. She knew exactly what she would do the following day. The next day, Miss Johnson entered her classroom and began reviewing the test. Most of the students had gotten the answer wrong. She found this amusing. Finally, they would learn a lesson they wouldn't forget. Just before the bell rang, she asked the students to turn over their papers. They did so reluctantly. Then she told them to write down the number of mistakes they had made. After they had done so, Miss Johnson gave them their papers back. She then asked them to stand up and hold up their papers so she could see their scores. As the students stood up, Miss Johnson saw that they were holding their papers in funny positions. They were doing everything they could to hide the numbers. She smiled. They were already learning their lesson. Then she asked the students to sit down and write down the number of mistakes they had made. They did so hesitantly. Then she told them to get out their phones. They did so quickly, knowing exactly what was coming. Miss Johnson then instructed each student to go to their phone settings and change their wallpaper to their score. The students did so diligently. Then Miss Johnson dismissed them for the day. As they left the classroom, Miss Johnson couldn't help but smile. She knew that they wouldn't forget this lesson anytime soon. Word got around the school about Miss Johnson's clever way of dealing with the phone issue. Other teachers were impressed by her quick thinking. Soon, other classes were using her method to deal with their own phone issues. Miss Johnson had finally won the battle. In the weeks that followed, Miss Johnson continued to use the phone strategy. Every time she noticed a student using their phone, she would give them a quiz. She would then change their wallpaper to their score. It was a simple but effective strategy. The students eventually got the message and stopped using their phones in class. Miss Johnson's popularity grew as the year went on. The students finally listened to her, and the parents finally respected her. It was a win-win situation. In the end, Miss Johnson had turned her classroom around. She had created a phone-free zone, and her students were actually listening to her. She had finally accomplished what she had set out to do. And so, the year went on. Miss Johnson continued to teach her students with passion, and they continued to learn with enthusiasm. They had all grown together and were ready to face the world. Miss Johnson knew that they would succeed because she had taught them well. They were prepared for anything. One day, years later, Miss Johnson was going through some old yearbooks when she came across one particular photo. It was a photo of her class from that fateful year. She looked at the smiling faces and couldn't help but smile herself. She remembered how challenging that year had been, but also how rewarding it had been. She had made a difference in those students' lives, and that knowledge filled her with joy. As she looked at the photo, she knew that she had made the right decision. By standing up to the parents and dealing with the phone issue, she had created a better learning environment for her students. They had gone on to achieve great things, and she was proud to have played a part in their success. Miss Johnson's story is an inspiring one. It's a story about a teacher who didn't give up in the face of adversity. She had a difficult class, but she didn't let it get to her. She used her wits to solve the problem, and in the end, she won. Miss Johnson is a role model for all teachers. She showed them that it's possible to deal with difficult situations without resorting to violence or harsh punishments. She also showed them that it's important to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's hard. Miss Johnson is a true hero. And now it's your turn. What do you think of Miss Johnson's story? Do you think she handled the situation the right way? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to share this story with your friends. We hope you enjoyed the story. If you did, please hit the like button and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time.